Welcome back to The Quiet Part. This is episode 2 of Loud. Raising children is not selfish. The topic of today's video is going to be talking about the fact that I'm not going to be having kids. As of yesterday, I had a vasectomy.
Testicular torsion!
My partner and I have been agreed on that for years, and I thought in lieu of me really making that happen and dedicating to that choice, I thought I'd make a video talking about why a teacher of all people has decided that they don't want to raise kids. And the first topic I want to just talk about is money, okay? Because that's 90% of the problem. So my fiance and I earlier did some research. We pulled up some good data, and we knew about this beforehand. Before the data, you know, it doesn't even need to be said that raising kids is cost prohibitive in the United States. Doing it correctly, morally, just doesn't exist. So I want to start with this. This is a statistic from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, which I wonder why it's them. It's because they provide the food, and the U.S. Department of Agriculture generally is affiliated with all these things. The cost of raising a child in the U.S. right now, you could probably increase the cost of this because this is data from 2017, I believe. And you could probably make this about $300,000 now based on inflation. But raising a child is $233,000. With how much my fiance and I make together, we can put away about $20,000 a year. So if we tried to save for a child, which I know people don't do, they raise their child while making that money. If we wanted to save a child, it would take us 15 years to afford to have the money saved to provide all the needs for that kid without constantly being on a razor's edge of losing our house or not being able to afford anything and not getting by as a consequence. So that's absurd. You know, if you wanted to raise a kid in an environment where you weren't permanently financially stressed, you would have to start raising money at 16, and maybe by 32 or 31, you could have that kid, and you'd have the money. But you'd have to work for 15 years of your life and put away all that money, also in a dual income household. It doesn't make sense. It's cost prohibitive, and it just doesn't work out. And a topic I wanted to address in particular for why I'm not having kids is childcare is psycho. Childcare is horrifying. And it's all tied to the simple fact that you can't have single income households anymore and raise a kid at the same time. If a kid costs that much to raise, it doesn't work for one parent to be working and the other for them to raise them. And there are circumstances where it does. Let's talk about those circumstances. You come from money. If you come from an upper middle class or even higher class family, yeah, you'll have grandparents who are fully retired who can take care of the kid. You'll have money from family. You didn't buy your car. Your parents bought it for you. Yeah, your finances will be in a different situation, but that's not what most families are like in the United States. People cannot afford to raise children. Look at the cost of childcare. Look at that. The median number, the kind of lower end number for toddlers and up is in the 8,000s to 6,000s, which means just in childcare alone for one kid, assuming like you put them in childcare from 2 to 10, which some parents might consider a little early to start leaving your kid home alone at, it's going to be $60,000 or more just for daycare, which is why in some circumstances families in the modern day elect to, if one of the income earners, if like the husband or wife or someone makes, you know, less than $60,000 a year, they just quit their job and raise the kid for 10 years, which is cool and all, but that means that one income has to be really damn high to balance that out. And then once you get past that point, people get their jobs back and keep saving. And the important information that I've kind of neglected here is that I also have not included the cost of college, which makes all of these numbers significantly worse. So it's one of those situations where you have to sort of laugh so you don't cry. It's awful. Being a parent must be unbelievably, unforgivably just difficult. Yes, people get fulfillment from raising their kids. I get fulfillment for being a teacher. I understand a part of that experience. But money is my main and first problem. It's why I'm not having kids. But there are about 5 other reasons. So let's talk about number 2, the cycle of trauma. I come from a family of trauma. My mother came from a family of trauma. There have been generations back in my family where children have been raised incorrectly in one of 2 ways. One, their families were too poor to care for them well. Okay? me, which is the newest generation, which had pretty good money compared to my mom's generation, there were constant times when it was like on the razor's edge whether or not I would have money for lunch, for school, which is so ridiculous. School's compulsory, but they can't give you food. Obviously, I did a quiet part on that. Kids aren't people. Kids aren't people to schools. Not at least to schools. Maybe to parents. Kids are real people to parents, but maybe not to schools. I'm sure there are parents who don't treat their kids like people also. I'll address that later. But I come from a family of trauma. I carry trauma with me, and it will have impacts on me. I'm neurotic. I'm simply a slightly weirder person because of the trauma that I carry and my genetic dispositions, right? I'm on the spectrum. You combine that with having the traumas that I do, and starting at the age of 12, which is kind of when I started waking up in life in my story. At the age of 12, I looked at the traumas I was experiencing from my father and from other people in my family, and I came to the simple conclusion, I'm going to be a dad, and I'm going to do it better. I'm going to do it better than my dad did it. Okay? And that's what I thought from the ages of 12 to 17. And 17 is when I decided I want to be a teacher. But that actually didn't kick out the idea. At some point around 17, I had the thought because I knew friends who I had talked to them and learned their stories as children of parents. And I had friends who it was pretty clear where their parent was trying to live through them. And I realized that if I'm going to have a kid just to say that I did better than my father, I'm not raising the kid for their sake. I'm raising it for my sake to feel good about myself. And so at 17, I said, never mind. I'm not going to break the cycle by being the good one, right? If you've seen the newest Spider-Verse movie, the Spider-Man Miles Morales movies, there's that really powerful scene where, Gwen says to her dad, who's a cop, and obviously the circumstance surrounding police officers in that movie and in the world is a bit complex. She says, you're a cop because you know that if you don't get that badge, someone else who doesn't deserve it will, right? I can see that logic as a parent. If I'm not a parent to my child, then there will be children in the world who don't get a parent like me. But that starts us on the quiet part topic for today. Is parenting selfish? Yes, but no. I mean, no, but yes. And for me, when I reached age 17, I started asking that question of like, I said I wanted to have kids eventually, and I wanted to do it better than my dad. I wanted them to have more money and more time with me, and for me to be a better parent than my father was. And then I realized, like, I'm just doing that for me. I want to feel good about myself, which is stupid. That's not to the benefit of the child. That's how I'm going to be breaking the cycle of trauma in my family. If I don't raise kids at all, I won't pass anything on. There's no ability for me to pass on anything, whether it be my trauma or and obviously this is a very eugenics-y type of thought, but like I have a lot of health problems and I know genetically my kid would get them. And I'm not trying to make the human race better by not having kids, but I would feel really bad if my child had my asthma, my chronic asthma, the way that I did. They were constantly in and out of hospitals the way that I was. I would feel really damn awful. I couldn't forgive myself. And that's kind of the first big thing personally. I want to stop the cycle of trauma, which is selfless. But the truth is, I'm afraid of what happens if I fail to, which is selfish. So is having kids selfish or selfish? It's hard to tell. So the cycle of trauma, I want to stop it by not having kids. But what are my other reasons? This is my philosophy. I only bet on guarantees. And this is an argument that I will refute from parents who say, my kid could be Albert Einstein. Your kid could also be Hitler. Your kid could also do very little and just be a cog in the machine, which is perfectly fine. Like society has to exist. But I've always disliked it when parents sort of simp for the future or simp for hope. They're like, well, hope. I'm hopeful. I have hope that I will do better and that the future will get better. And importantly, I hope that my kid will solve the world's problems. And that's what I take offense to. Solve them yourself. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm not going to have kids. And something that I've promised myself as a consequence of that is if I'm not going to have kids and try to fix the future through lineage, I better be doing something myself about these problems that I'm complaining about. I am not going to place the hopes of the future on an unborn child. I'm going to place them on myself, an adult that is here already and can do something about it. I've never liked that philosophy that some parents have of like, well, I can break the cycle and my kid will save the world and stop climate change and everything will be fine. I've never liked that because in my life, my philosophy is I don't posit moral things. I don't weigh morality on guesses. Oh, well, I hope that the world will get better. Oh, I hope that my kid will come out well. Or I hope that I'm going to be a good parent. None of those things are guaranteed, but what is a guarantee is that we are alive right now and we can have an effect on the world if we do something about it. That is a guarantee. Our will and our ability to control what we do is a guarantee. Our kids aren't. The future is not. But what we are doing right now is. And I don't bet on possibilities. I bet on what I know and what I can control, especially if we're talking about the consequence of a human life. Okay? So that raises me to sort of, I believe, point 3, because point 1 was money was the problem. Point 2 was the cycle of hatred. Point 3 was it doesn't align with my philosophy. I'm not betting on a future. Point 4, which I've already kind of addressed. I'm going to say it. I am scared. I do not have the strength that a parent has to face the fact that every life is also a death. When you bring people into the world, no matter what your philosophy is, whether you're, an objective religious person who believes that morality is subjective and there are certain things in the afterlife that are guaranteed, whether you're a subjectivist and everything is flowy, whether you're a nihilist and believe in nothing, that's all irrelevant. What I'm trying to say is like being alive means everything that comes with it. That means suffering. That means great happiness and fulfillment too, but it also guarantees suffering. And there's no way that I can guarantee for the future of my kid that they won't have a horrible life. I don't know what the world could do to them. I know what I can do to the world. I know what I can control, but I can't control what other people might do to my kid. I can't handle that idea. I would never forgive myself. I feel such deep guilt for when I hurt other people that I could never possibly imagine bearing the weight of that responsibility. So the truth is, and this is a great boomer argument, and you're right in my case, millennials are just too scared to have kids. You're goddamn right I am. I care too much. I'm not going to bet the life of another person on my hope that the future will be fine or that they won't suffer the way that I did. I'm not playing with a person's life. I'm not the Grim Reaper. I'm not God. I'm not doing that. And so that's where I stand on that. Is like being alive means suffering. No matter what, you're going to endure it. You're going to endure happiness probably too. And that's totally valid. And I understand parents who say, well, I'm going to give my kid a good life. Cool. But you're placing a bet. You're rolling a die. You're just saying that. You don't know what's going to happen. All right. So those are sort of my 4 big reasons for why I'm not going to be having children, and I chose to get the vasectomy that I did. 1, the money doesn't make sense. Okay? 2, I want to stop the cycle of hatred, and the way that I think I can do that is by not having more kids to carry the cycle of trauma and hatred on. I want to stop that. 3, I operate on guarantees, not bets. And 4, bringing a life into the world means suffering is going to happen. Every person that's ever lived will eventually die, and I don't know if I can handle the responsibility of knowing that all the suffering in a person's life that they go through, that isn't their choice, which is a lot of the stuff that we deal with. I can't handle knowing that it's only happening in the first place because I chose to have that kid. I can't handle it. I could never do it. So, is having children selfish? That's a personal opinion. No amount of data is going to stop the fact that this is a philosophical topic. This is not a topic of numbers in the American education system, like with some of the stuff that I deal with. It comes down to the parent. And so here's the message I have to anyone that's going to have kids. Do a good fucking job. Be the best you could ever imagine. And importantly, I respect you for what you're doing. You scare the shit out of me. The fact that a person can exist who looks at all the situations that people are facing and still says, I'm going to do it. I'm going to endure it. I'm going to carry the weight and responsibility of raising this child and giving them a good life, even if it means my failures will be on myself. Parents are two things: stupid and courageous. They're both. It's not one or the other. And that's my philosophy, is I have a deep respect for people that are having kids, but I'm also objectively thinking that was really stupid at the same time. You can have both those things exist at the same time. Are you brave or are you stupid? You're both. That's what I think parents are. They're brave and stupid. And I think I'm brave and stupid too. I'm going to miss out on getting to do the whole parenting experience. I'm going to miss out on all of the great fulfillment that can come from that. But I have the bravery to say, you know what? Instead of hoping my kid solves the world problems, I'm going to try to solve the world's problems. Speaking of the world's problems, one more topic. I'm going to add a fifth bonus topic as an Easter egg. The climate is collapsing.
The planet is dying. The government hates us. The animals are leaving. The aliens aren't contacting us.
The world is falling apart. I think there are very valid environmental reasons for not having kids. If this were the year, 2300 and the world is globalized and the countries have all agreed that we have to not just stop carbon emission, but we're actually starting to reverse it, heck yeah, I'm having kids. They're going to have a future. They'll have a future. But right now, again, it's just another bet. It's not a guarantee. And I'm not going to bet a person's life on a possibility. I'm going to bet a life on what I can control. And that is my life and my life only. So my partner and I, we're not having kids. We aren't going to place the hopes of the world on the future. We're going to place the hopes of the world on the present, which is us and what we can do right now. So, having kids is not selfish. Have a good day.